All
Cool.
right.
Well, good to see you again, Bryson, and good to meet you, Chris.
Hey, nice to meet you
Hey,
too.
Thank you for the time. I'll go ahead and get started. So,
sure.
Gachiakuta has a very unique style combining grit with coolness and style. How did you match or not match your style to that style and vibe of the anime?
My visual style, I've never been much of a fashion person myself, but in terms of the voice acting, I don't know, I try to incorporate a little bit of that grunginess to it. I remember when I was younger, I used to sing a lot of like metal, heavy metal stuff, and I try to incorporate some ideas that I remember from doing that back in the day. When it comes to having that little bit of grit to Rudo's voice, that bite that he has whenever he gets really angry. And yeah, I think I wear more hats now than I used to. But
I actually grew up, 80s and 90s, and so the whole like skater aesthetic was a really big deal back then. And I had a kid that I went to school with, who was a couple years older than me, and basically as soon as I saw the audition sides, I was immediately drawn to Enjin. And the vibe of his character design just really reminded me of this skater kid that I knew growing up. And same kind of haircut, same kind of like kind of wild clothing choices, very much his own unique style. And so I kind of brought a little bit of that into how I was interpreting my audition. And so the interesting thing about Engine 2 is that despite being this cool kind of like skater dude, tough skater dude kind of vibe, also really has like I would call it like kind of a goofy, like almost like a silliness to him. And so he seems like kind of a prankster. He's very much just out here trying to roast people. And so I wanted to try to bring that into it as well. And so that all kind of amalgamates into your performance when you first start trying to get your head around a character. And so those all those elements went into it for sure.
Mm.
That makes sense. And you mentioned the audition sides. In terms of direction, once you actually had the role and were kind of crafting the voice, what kinds of direction did you get, if any?
I think I remember incorporating into my audition was a little bit of a softness to him, to Rudo in particular, that I feel like may have been a little bit overlooked when just kind of looking as at the sides as they were presented. I remember the audition incorporating some of his more angrier moments and stuff, and you could read into it a bit of a resentment in it in some of his softer lines in those auditions. But I remember reading those lines, and after having read the first few chapters, I was like, oh, this kid is just like misunderstood. He's got a softness to him that like he still yearns to have that family that he never really had, even though he was thrown out by society and by a lot of his peers. He still had a little bit of that family in Regto and Chiwa at the time, that he could rely on. And I feel like he was just in a place where he was still trying to search for more people like that. And so when being directed, when actually working on the show and doing those first few trailers, there were moments where Lee, the director, would say, okay, now we need a little bit more of that bite still in here. Because I think there were some times where my natural inclination as a person is to soften up in general. And so sometimes I need a little bit of that reinforcement of like, okay, well, here he needs to be a little bit more aggressive still. Um, but generally I try to find a good balance both from the visuals, the sound effects, and the scene work with the other characters, in addition to the guiding force of the original Japanese actor's performance as well.
I would say something that stands out for me. I can't remember if it was episode 3 or 4, but it's where Engine and Rudo are really like starting to get down to brass tacks about what is this world. He's taken
Mhm.
Rudo to the doctor. Um, and my initial approach on it was like, okay, this is where Engine is going to kind of be a father figure. And so some of the reads I was doing, I felt like were, honoring the original performance, but we're also leaning into like, this is a fatherly moment. He's going to like kind of be his surrogate dad here. And I remember Lee kind of being like, that was good, Can you give me an option where you're advising him and it's kind of annoying? Like I was like, oh, okay. So we're doing this more like he's an older brother. Like, okay, let me explain to you now how the world works. Like that kind of thing versus like let me be a lot more warm. Let me be a lot more like understanding. Um and honestly, that really helped me. That was a piece of direction that helped me kind of go, "Oh, okay. Like he cares about this kid, but it's an older brother. Like this is like my annoying little brother, sort of. Like it's how Engine is approaching this sometimes. And that was a shift that I feel like put me right where I needed to be.
Definitely makes sense. And one thing I'm personally curious about, because I feel like the English dub almost has gone viral for how good and how modern it is. Have you two had any opportunity to either be involved with the script writing or improvise any lines, or is that all coming from someone else so far?
In my experience, I haven't improvised a whole ton. The script writer James Cheek has just done a really good job of incorporating that language into the show. I think in a way that still plays to the strengths of the actors performing it, being that we're Western actors, and so we have Western sensibilities, and it makes it feel more natural for us to use like slang and stuff that we're used to hearing around us. Um, but there are a few moments. There was a few moments where I got to just get a little bit crazy with it. Like during episode 3, there's that scene where Zonka is like sniffing his assist staff and like in a weird, creepy way, and Rudo just goes, "Dude, ew." And I think before that the line itself was just like ew by itself, or like what the heck, or like what is he doing? And so that was a fun little addition I got to add. I think was that kind of added to the moment.
Yeah, we are getting to throw some stuff out. Obviously, it's always up to the director and the producers and the production team, and the licensors and all the people above us to decide what actually gets put in the final cut. Like we don't, but Lee very much creates an environment where we can play and where we can just explore, and so to that end, I have been able to throw some things that got added. One of them was from the scene where Rudo is finally experiencing sweets for the first time, and Engine's advice, I forget how it was originally written, but it was just kind of like, hey, go easy or something like that. And I did the line and then I threw out, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And like we all laughed. And so that's not exactly like modern slang, but it was just like that's a funny thing for Engine to say in that moment, and that got included. So I was really happy about that. I've certainly never been able to say that in an anime. So only this show. It's a very special show.
Amazing. And Bryson, you mentioned earlier the idea of Rudo's grit. Obviously, he has a bit of a temper, but he also has the ability to be very introspective and calm when it comes to things that he cares a lot about. How did you approach balancing those kinds of contrasting sides to him?
I think honestly the writing of the series and Rudo as a character does a really good job of conveying that in a way that it just kind of feels natural for me to play those sides of him. I think that a lot of the scenes kind of flow in a way that he just kind of naturally falls into those things. And the way that I tend to act for voiceover is I take in the scene that I'm watching, I take in all the sound effects, the music, and I hear that original performance of the Seiyu, and I kind of use those as a guiding baseline to to go for whenever I start doing my first couple of takes on a scene. But yeah, I don't know how better to like describe it on a technical side of things, but I kind of go with the flow of it, I think, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Chris, kind of similar question. Engine's sort of everything you want in a mentor character. He can also oscillate between serious, playful, and protective when the situation calls for it. How do you balance those things?
I mean, it's interesting. It's like there are moments I feel like where if anything we've pulled back a little bit because Engine is I feel like a character who is so given to, one-liners and pranky humorous moments that I think we've played some lines a little bit more deadpan than even they did in the Japanese, just to allow him to be more of a mentor type character for that to be communicated in the moment. Only a couple times that I can think of, but in general, it's kind of just all about his presence too. Like he's going to be the part of the story a lot of the time that explains things, so he's sort of explaining to Rudo and thereby through Rudo the audience how this works. How does this world work, and like what does this mean, and where are we going now, and what is the purpose of that, and why do we need a full face mask, and all these things that are just like common sense things that everybody on the ground already knows, but we're introducing to Rudo and the audience for the first time. So he fulfills an important part of that storytelling, and I feel like he does it in a way that is not boring. Like he does it in a
Mm.
way that still engages the audience. Like we're gonna build this world for you, but it's gonna be fun, and sometimes it's even gonna be funny. And Engine is just a fantastic character for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of their dynamic between Engine and Rudo, what's sort of your impression of it? And do you both think that Engine was the ideal cleaner to first find Rudo?
I think so. I think finding Engine so early on was good for Rudo because he used to have that guiding force in Regto, trying to help him figure out how to handle emotional situations that he's put in when he's in the sphere. And now that he's on the ground, he's immediately found somebody that can help guide him and show him the ropes as to like what this new world is all about that he's not familiar with. But I think the dynamic has shifted much to like what Chris has said before, in that it's more of a bratty younger brother, older brother who's too cool for school. Kind of they get at each other's nerves sometimes, but they generally respect each other. That at least that's how I feel.
And they're very much from two different worlds. Like
Hmm.
Engine, I thought it was fascinating to me from a character perspective that Engine basically just like tests Rudo to the point of like maybe he would die. In
Hmm.
those, and he's just like, let's see if this kid can do this. Like that's sort of the world of the ground. The ground is like brutal. Like and so Engine is kind of our first look at that of like, of course he's there, he's paying attention, he's observing from a distance as Rudo goes up against these, just random dudes that are trying to kidnap him essentially. Um, and so, but it is interesting that that's sort of Engine's approach. He's like, let's see how useful this kid is. Let's see
Hmm.
what he's made of. Let's see. And so there's a lot of different ways that could have gone. But Engine, I guess, trusts himself. He trusts his own capability. He trusts his own ability to protect him um, in a very dangerous world. And so,
Hmm.
and that I assume that comes from a lot of experience. We just don't know that much about Engine yet. We're still speculating a lot about his backstory and where he gets all this from. But yeah, so far I think it's been a really interesting entree to the world. These are two characters from two totally different worlds, and getting a chance to see them sort of like interact has been one of the most fun things about the first 11 episodes so far.
Hmm.
Amazing. And I got two kind of fun questions. The first one, what has been one of your favorite scenes so far, either to perform or to watch?
Hmm. I really loved the Jabber fight, just the two-parter. I think the talisman vital instrument that Rudo uses is like one of the coolest designs in the whole season so far. And then I just love Zeno's performance as Jabber. It's amazing to watch. Um, and yeah, in terms of more fun to record, the sweet scene was a lot of fun, just gobbling up all the cartoon candy.
I will say I have to give Bryson some credit because I didn't know what to expect from the Rudo smiling at Zonka scene.
Oh.
But like that was what that's one of that's the maybe one of the biggest laughs I've ever had watching that episode and seeing what Bryson did with it. Absolutely just killed me.
Thank you.
I don't know how you did that. You must have had your hands in your mouth or something, but that was freaking hilarious.
Thank you, thank you. I no, that's another one that was a hilarious fun time to record. Just that entire episode with Zonka, nonstop laughs.
Amazing. And then last question, the obligatory question, what will be your personal vital instrument?
So I have actually like an old Game Boy Advance copy of Mega Man Battle Network 2 that like the label's been peeled off, and so I just kind of like wrote a Sharpie on it, and I've had that for like 20 years or something from now. And it's come with me through my entire childhood and my adult life, and I would imagine it would turn into something like a catch-all game system or something that like will play whatever I want to at that moment or something.
Yeah, for me, I spent my 20s in bands playing drums and touring around and cutting records and stuff. And I still have my original pair of sticks that I learned to play drums on back when I was 14 or 15, and they're beat to hell and destroyed. But I would love to be able to pull those out and then maybe summon like a ghostly drum set anywhere I am, so I don't have to lug them around. And then maybe I could play them at whatever volume I want, and other people around me really can't hear them. So it's just for me, and I don't have to disturb the peace.
Mhm.
Awesome. Very cool. I think that's all of my time.